People are amazing. And this world has a large supply of incredible people doing incredible things that have a story to tell. Stories that encourage, inspire, and are just plain interesting. Join us on the 1st and 15th of every month as David Disponett meets with interesting and inspiring people that, well, he just wants to talk to.
I'll probably get canceled for saying this, but I often joke that tattoo artists are actually tattoo autists because most of us are probably partially on the spectrum in some way. It takes a real weird type of person to want to do this kind of job.
Oh, yeah, tell me the detail. Like I would not have I wouldn't be able to sit and focus on something that long and that detailed. Like
that might be the only thing I can do that with.
Okay, I was about to say like.
No, I got good at art as a coping mechanism. It's as a funny way to put it, man. A lot of people would do sports or maybe play video games or do other stuff to try to escape when they were having negative feelings. I just drew all the time. And since it was a coping mechanism, I got the practice in as an incidental thing. It wasn't like I got when I was a kid. I was like, I want to be a good artist. I just started drawing and I liked it. And I don't believe that there's even such thing as like somebody that's a born anything. I don't think you can be a born artist or a born musician or a born athlete. You're more likely to be a born athlete than you are anything because your genetics might change that.
Yes, yeah.
But I believe that you have the inclination at an early age to use these things as coping mechanisms, to use them as ways to have fun, and that's how you get good at stuff. It's just a natural progression, you know.
That's a really good way to look at it, Justin. Like I never really thought of it that way. I guess.
I mean, you like video.
But it was the one thing, right? As a kid, like I was in high school, even, and I didn't do college till I got out of the military. So I actually did really well in college because I actually had some discipline and like took it serious at 23 years old.
You gotta have discipline.
Before, at 18 years old, I would have been partying, doing stupid ass shit. But I remember when I was a kid, like picking up a camera and shooting and editing. It was like the one thing that like just made sense to me. Like I wanted to get better at it. I liked it. And it literally is just like, this was so easy compared to everything else I had tried, right? This skill set, like I looked forward to it. Like I'd be at work thinking about like, what do I want to shoot with my little crappy, what is it? Like, I can't even remember what type of tapes it took, but it was like 8 something. They were called 8 something, if I remember correctly.
I remember having all kinds
of. They were like
antique now.
Yeah, it's completely antiquated at the moment, but it was the one thing that made sense. And then I just kept working on it and getting better at it. Made fuck ton of mistakes.
Oh man, like success is an action of failure stacked on top of one another until you figure it out. I was thinking about this on the way over here because I was thinking about how like it's funny. I used to hate leg day in the gym. I used to hate working out, but I still did it. And I find that I enjoy it now. But I think what had to happen is I had to get past the learning curve where I felt like a potato and I was terrible at it. When you introduce a kid to something new, they're terrible at it, and everybody wants to, pat them on the back. Oh, you're so great, Jimmy, because we can't, discourage them. But like, you watch a 5-year-old try to do a cartwheel and you're like, this is how I do a cartwheel. And you're like, that wasn't a cartwheel, bud.
Right.
But they get frustrated and they want to quit early, but it turns out that I think the enjoyment for things comes when you've got the discipline to push past the part where you're like a walking potato and you don't know how to do anything and it sucks and it's embarrassing and you're like sitting there and you're like, am I lifting right? And 5 times a week somebody's coming over there like, dude, you're going to injure yourself if you keep doing that.
Right, exactly.
But once I started getting good at it, it became a lot more enjoyable. But I only learned that from tattooing. Like I learned that from drawing. Like when I got good at drawing, so it became a lot more enjoyable because then it was like I got reactions from people. I was like, oh man, I did that. That's cool. You
got that validation that you're actually pretty good at this, and you're just like, I want to go do more now,
right?
And I want to be better.
But what's really scary, man, about that, especially because you and I are both producing things that the public consumes, so when we provision, this bits of ourself like that, and the hard part is that we're talking about somebody else's vision. So we're technically speaking, unless we're making our own thing, we're commission artists, and commissioning to me means that you have to like subtly put a cap on your creativity because you have to control it. Like if I go do what I want to do, if I draw what I want to draw, some clients will want it. But I don't even do commission paintings anymore because if I'm going to paint something and you want to buy it afterwards, dope. But I'm not going to, I don't want to have anything. I want to have one thing in my life that I'm not doing somebody else's idea.
I get that.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But because we have to put that cap on our creativity, it actually puts us in a position where we're like presenting stuff to people. You like this, you like that, you like that. And it takes a long time of messing that up tremendously.
Right. Oh yeah. I send multiple rough drafts to clients. Like, okay, how do you feel about the color on this? Or like, do you like the shots here? Cause I definitely want their input on like, cause it's their product, right? Yeah. And I want them to be happy with it. But very rarely does a client come to me and be like, so here's kind of the idea, but like, you're the professional. Just make it happen. Tell me what to do. And I do get that from time to time, and I'm able to be more creative in that way. But yeah, most clients, and honestly, I want my clients to have an idea of what they want, because they're going to be so much happier when they're involved, because there's those clients like, yeah, whatever. Like, this is kind of what I need for my business, but I just figure it out and do it for me. And then you do it, and they're like, well, this is exactly what I was thinking about. And I'm like, well, okay, that means you've thought about it. That means you have an idea of how it should look. Mm-hmm. Let me know so that we can work off of that.
You're kind of talking on this thing that I stumbled across through tattooing, that people are actually searching for emotional validation with everything they purchase, even from a business perspective. You're trying to validate a particular thing in your life in some way. And so when we do that, we start to realize that when somebody isn't clear from the start what they want to do and why they want to do it, then the issue is that you're trying to guess. And I believe that clarity is the most important part of life. Like, if discipline's important, don't get me wrong, but if I'm not clear about what I need to be disciplined about, it don't matter. I can be a very disciplined mess up. I was a incredibly disciplined addict for a long time. I never woke up and said, man, I can't get drugs today. Right. That's like crackheads have a type of discipline that most people could only dream about. Real talk. And once I became
they would do anything to get their drug.
Yeah. But once I became clear that I could do that with anything else,
right,
it changed, man. And I would say honestly, probably that through your process of learning to edit video, what you thought looked good, what didn't look good, making colossal mistakes up and down, all of, because that's what happens. That you learned that discipline it took for you to get good at that, or the discipline it took you in the Navy to get good at what you're doing there, could be applied to anything else in your life. And I learned that through tattooing. I learned I could be a better father, because I learned that if I wanted to be a better portrait artist, I just simply had to figure out what that skill set looked like and practice it enough to get good at it. And as a father, I do the same thing, man. Like, what's my skill set as a father look like? What do I want to be? And how can I apply that now that I know what it is? How can I be disciplined about that, walking that out? And I learned that just because of my passion for art.
Right.
It was a byproduct.
How long have you been tattooing now for?
Like 20 plus years.
20. Okay. And then what was it like early on? Because I'm guessing you were doing the drugs early on, did that come after you started tattooing? Like, because I think there probably is this perception of what that world looks like, right? The tattoo world in general.
Right.
And you're kind of probably that unique person that kind of, you're a Christian, right? Mm-hmm. And you're all about telling people about it. Mm-hmm. You've done the drug thing, but you're past that.
Yeah.
You would just have a different perspective than I feel like a lot of tattoo artists do. Mm-hmm. So like, what did that look like early on in your career? Because I'm sure did you rent or did you work for somebody when you first started out? Like, what did that look like?
Well, I guess the best way to kind of start it off is just like I sent you in my intro. I'm a person who's figured out what to do by doing the wrong things every time. I don't know what it is, man, but I've always been committed at everything. I was just committed to the wrong things, and since I wasn't really like paying attention to what I should be doing, I oftentimes found out what I should have been doing by doing that wrong thing, and hating how I felt afterwards, or hating the results, or seeing that 2 years down the line how that affected me. But I got my first tattoo at 18 years old. I know looking at me, you'd think I came from a family of a lot of people who were heavily tattooed. I do not. I come from a family that had a lot of problems, don't get me wrong, but I think I had one uncle that had a couple of tattoos he got when he was in the Navy, and he wasn't around very often. But I got my first tattoo, man, and I just remember, like, I didn't know what that world looked like. I walked in there and I thought I was going to see some crazy machine that had like vials of ink in it, and he did help the tattoo artist while they did it, and he set this thing of colors out, and I'm like looking, there's like skulls on the wall, and I'm like, oh my god, this place is so cool, bro. And like I'm just watching all these dudes that I'm 18, dog, I'm barely out of my mom's house. I'd smoked crack by the time I was like 15 or 16 years old.
Oh, wow. So like the drugs was really early on for you.
what's interesting, I said I used art as an escape. I also used video games as escapes. I used books as escapes. I mean, I've lost jobs as a result of reading too much, like real talk. But anything that I can abuse to get out of my own head, I have to be very, very cautious with, man. Like even working out can be like that. If I'm not careful, I'll train arms 3 days in a row just because I really love the way I feel when I'm training arms, but it's not good for you.
So you can get hyper focused or hyper obsessed about something, and it's almost like a masking tool to whatever you're dealing with in life.
Correct. So, I just started tattooing out of the house after I got this tattoo because like this dude, he pulled the first line on me and it was over. Like I just knew it. Like I was like, this is it, man. Like this is just.
Were you already drawing and stuff at that age?
Yeah, I started like my earliest memory that I can actually remember is drawing in the bathroom with my mom while she was using the bathroom. That's probably TMI, but you know that like when you're too young and crazy to be left alone in the house,
right.
and you're just like, all right, you're gonna come in here while mom poops, and it's a weird memory, but like I remember it so clearly, and I was like trying to draw a face, and she was like, make it more oval shaped. And it was like, it just clicked with me when she said that. I was like, oh, you're right. People's faces aren't round. And through that process, I started looking at stuff. Instead of trying to draw it in my head, I started looking at pictures of stuff. And it turns out I don't know what it's called. I can't remember, but there's like a weird thing that you can, some people have that like you can't see pictures in your head very well. Like if I close my eyes and you tell me to imagine something, I just see black and maybe like a vague smoky shape. Like it just doesn't make pictures the way you think it should. And I digress a little bit, but I learned how to draw by just looking at stuff. So like it was like I didn't have a lot of instructors. I was like, you know what, I can do this myself because I taught myself how to draw. And he was like, you can do that, man. You can just buy a tattoo kit and tattoo all your friends and draw a bunch. And I did that, and everybody's tattoos up for like 5 years, bro.
So you were literally just doing it out of the house.
It was terrible, bro. Yeah, it was out of the house. But the issue is that I hadn't made the leap that tattooing could be a fine art yet. I hadn't seen tattoos that were fine art yet. Like I just seen people out on the streets with their janky little trailer park tattoos and like, the people that I hung out with, which was drug addicts that had their, crappy little picked in. And
I wonder how many drug addicts just got a random tattoo from somebody like doing drugs. Just like, let's go. Let's just fucking put some shit on my body.
All the time, bro. So many of the cover-ups I do are because of that. But so I started doing that, man. And eventually I decided I wanted to be really committed to that. And the funny thing is at that time I was the night shift supervisor for Overstock.com. And I was in charge of like 120 people. Like I was like the supervisor's supervisor.
Now, were you doing drugs during that time as well?
I smoked weed a little bit. I mean, like,
okay, so that was
when I say drugs, man, I would just put it like this. Like I smoked weed and drank pretty much regularly for most of my life. But like I'd have periods where I would kind of go off the rails a little bit. And most of the time it was attached to a relationship because women were probably my biggest drug problem,
Right.
When you get with a crackhead, you smoke crack too.
Yeah.
But I got into my first shop and that was like a really dope experience, but it was like a biker shop and it was like, I would run screaming when like my head was on fire if I walked in there to get a tattoo now with what I know about tattooing. But I learned exactly what not to do in that place. And this thing happened here where I thought I was like king shit. Excuse my language. And
you're good. We don't worry about language on this podcast.
So because I just thought it was cool that I could tattoo, man. So I thought that made me a tattoo artist. When I was just a tattoo guy. I wasn't even a tattooer yet in my mind. Because I was still trying to pull these flash pieces out. I was trying to trace other stuff. I thought, tattoos were tribal. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I didn't make the connection between fine art and tattooing. And the funny thing is in Europe, they're doing that backwards. They went from fine art to tattooing, so they brought the fine art already.
So what is the difference, in your opinion, between like fine art and tattooing? What does that look like to you?
American tattooing started out lowbrow. You know what I mean? Like if you really look at the imagery, it's like exploring how you can make the most simple piece of imagery be the most recognizable. American traditional eagles, the anchors, the globes, all those stuff like that. They're all very, that's funny. I just said EGA after. I can't believe I've tattooed the EGA so many times, but, those American traditional designs that were very simple and small that you saw, those were because those guys couldn't draw. And since they couldn't draw very good, they were having to figure out how they could make a mark that was recognizable with as little effort as possible, And that's obviously evolved a lot. But we started in a lowbrow thing here where tattooing was like, it was like in the brothel area. It was in the red light district. It was in the crappy areas of town. And now, we're starting to see people who are like, charging $2,000 a day, $3,000 a day, which is where I'm at now. And the reason why they're doing that is because they have a skill set. If your art lacks subtlety and it lacks a difficulty in applying it, then it really has nothing else. And the best way I can think to put it is like, since the Europeans have a 2,000-3,000 year steeped tradition of art, they have art schools that have been open for hundreds of years. And America, I love my country, man, but I sometimes I feel like the people around me are just like not even paying attention to what's going on. And they just brought that in there, man. Like when they were doing portraits and stuff like that, I remember I opened a magazine like 10 years ago and I was like, how did they do that? That is insane. It's because they went to art school. They had a master's in art
before they became a tattoo artist.
Of course, they're fire at it. You know what I mean? Like I'm over here just like trying to potato my way into it. But when that happened, when those kind of like realizations happened to me, I started doing something different. And I was like, look, I'm an idiot. Like clearly, my results speak that I'm an idiot.
Right.
But I don't have.
That's smart though. You're accepting that you can be better. You're accepting that there is forward progression that needs to be made instead of just being like, I'm awesome and I'm gonna get better. But like you're learning, right? Like if we're not growing, we're not learning from our mistakes or from like. To be honest, I think a good trait of someone that takes their art seriously is like they honestly never feel like they're good enough.
Oh, dude,
like
imposter syndrome is bad, bro. But
I think it's good. I think it's good because it makes you want to be better, right? You look at your work and you're like, nah, man, that's shit. Everyone else is loving it, and you're like, how can I make that better?
My wife thinks that I'm the best person that's ever tattooed or held a tattoo machine, like by a long shot, man. Like, and I'll show her tattoos that I consider to be A1 quality tattoos, and she's like, you could do that, and I'm like, honey, like. I'm not trying to be rude, but this is like 15 people in the world that are doing this kind of stuff.
Right.
Now, I can do that. I can work towards it, and I am. But I try to tell people that the best way I can look at it is that if I'm humble enough to say that I think I can do a good B+ tattoo, a good A- tattoo, and try to aim for A+ every time I do it, then I'm more likely to hit those eventually, and I'm more likely to do good A quality tattoos. But I don't like to think that I got done with something and say, damn, that's so good. I got about 15 minutes. If I'm lucky, I have 15 minutes. Then I'll be able to bask in like really feeling like I did a good job. And then I take a picture of it. I'll walk away. 5 minutes later, I look at that picture. I'm like, I hate this thing.
Right?
Now, the funny thing is my clients are stoked. They're like, oh my God, this is so much better than I thought. I was like, do you think it was going to be crappy or what?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, yes. But what are you paying me for?
But after all that, man, it's really hard. Like, and I agree with you, man. But this kind of goes along with the same fact of the matter is that like I think that we've overvalued emotion in our culture
100%.
nowadays. As a man, the world don't care how I feel. They just care what I can produce.
Right.
Why should I care how I feel then? Like if I wait 10 minutes, sometimes I feel differently. Sometimes people do stuff that I get really mad about and I think about it later and I'm like, why was I mad?
Yeah.
Something was irritating me, and it wasn't them. It was just something else and it tripped on that. But again, these are all things that I figured out from sucking really bad at everything until I was like, man, like these results are not good, Justin. Like maybe teaching yourself everything's bad. And like I did something that was really gutsy at that point. And I was like, I'd moved to Kentucky at that point and I was homeless again. I was, looking like I might end up strung out again. I brought a girl that had pressed fake charges against me back in Utah because that was the type of person I was attracted to back in the day, and moved her with me here after that. And, I'm homeless, I'm couch surfing, and I'm looking in this mirror and I'm like, how is this every time, everywhere you go, this happens to you? It can't be the world, Justin. It can't be. Like, you suck. I don't like you. I don't like what you do. I don't like how you act. I don't like what the results you have.
Right.
And at that time, there was a dude named Tim Trevino, who's one of my biggest influences in my life. I used to work for him. He did 10 years in I think it was Pelican Bay. So he's a hard boiled dude. Like this guy don't play. But like the seriousness of like everything got put on the table because he would be the only person in my life that checked me. Because I'd be like, sitting talking trash on politics and like the economy and this, that, and the other. And he's like, Justin, how many books have you ever read about money? And I was like, none.
Right.
I just watch the news. And he's like, you ever read Think and Grow Rich or maybe Rich Dad, Poor Dad? And he rattled off 9-10 books real quick.
Right.
And I was like, no. And he's like, then anytime you're around me and you want to talk about this, I need you to shut the fuck up. And this is a dude that has told me, he confessed that he got in a fight one time when he was in Idaho, and he's like, oh, I punched him with a knife. And I was like, you mean you fucking stabbed him? Bro, what? And, allegedly, let me just say that too, because my friend, if you ever watch this, I love you, dog. But that reel was playing in my head, looking in that mirror. And I was like, okay, so my problem is that I don't know how to rub two pennies together and get 2 cents. And so I started reading these books that he recommended, and I started taking some classes, some courses, finding some mentors. I spent my last...
So you changed your mindset.
Yeah, man. I decided that that long term that other people probably knew more than I did about a lot of stuff.
Right.
And that's pretty intense.
When did you start changing your friends? Because I'm sure you had to do that at some point in time too. Because I mean, you just surround yourself with crap, you get crap results. In my opinion,
the one friend that took the longest to get rid of was that girl, and it was because I wanted validation from a woman so bad, man. But like when I got to a point, because she would not carry her weight, she would not do anything. I'm not going to say names because I think that'd be really rude to do. But
no, I totally get that.
It got to a point where I was like, if you don't figure it out in the next month, you're going to be homeless in Kentucky, or I'll buy you a plane ticket. I'll take my money out. I'll buy you a plane ticket and you can go back to Utah to your family. And she wasn't sure, which was crazy to me. Like, cause I was like, you would rather be homeless here? Cause like, you're not going to keep living with me. I'll tell you that right now. And that was the hardest conversation. I've never.
So you ended up getting yourself a place. You pulled yourself up.
Yeah. I had a place and she was living with me, but she was just,
but you were homeless originally when you got back. So how long?
I was couch surfing.
How long
with
did that
somebody
last?
Who was couch surfing with the person that we were living with. So you can see how that'd be embarrassing, man. Like, what kind of man is doing this stuff? You know,
right. I couldn't even be in a relationship in that setting,
bro. What kind of woman is attracted to that dude?
Yeah,
if that doesn't say something about the quality of the person I brought with me,
right?
But like, I mean, what's interesting about that, man, is that I remember thinking to myself too, like, and I told you a little bit about that yesterday, that like, I remember not being willing to admit that I was like sexually assaulted as a child.
Right.
Because it was such a source of shame for me.
Of course.
And the first time I told another man that, or another person in general, that was a dude that looked at me and said, me too, man. And like, that's really hard, man. But thank you for telling me that, because it makes me feel less alone too. And I was like, you mean I went my whole life keeping that a secret, trying to hide it, like hurting the whole time, and I could have just let it go? But I realized that pain had fueled me into all the wrong behaviors.
Well, of course.
But that means that it's a fuel rod. If I put gasoline in my house and set it on fire, it works the same as if I put it in my car. It's the same amount of energy produced. The house is going to produce extra energy because I burnt it down.
Right.
But it's the same initial amount of energy. And that pain is rocket fuel if you don't set your house on fire with it. And I came out of that house. I found a new place that week. I found a new place to work. I quit the shop I was at because I was...
How old are you at this time?
35, 34, somewhere around
How old are you now?
39.
Wow. So like this has been a big transformation over the last 4 or 5 years.
Absolutely, bro.
So you brought this girl back from Utah around that time frame? Was that... Or was that a little bit earlier?
I moved here on a Greyhound bus because she pressed those charges against me. Like I said, what's crazy is that she assaulted me, and at 110 pounds, maybe, soaking wet, she didn't do a lot of damage.
Right.
But it was like insulting, because I'm like, you didn't even step back or anything. Like, I wouldn't hit you, but you didn't even act like I might.
Right.
That's crazy. And, and I would never, but like, I was just like the audacity to do that, like blew my mind. And then she left and called the cops and said that I assaulted her. And, if you look like me, it doesn't matter what anybody else says, you're getting arrested.
Fair enough.
That's my fault. I made that decision. I understand that I look how I do. So I try to change that, perception now with how I act, how I talk, carry myself. But I went to jail for a few days, and then she started showing up at my house. And in Utah, if somebody has a protective order against you, they can show up at your house. And if you answer the door, you go to jail. No joke.
Really?
And so she was doing this all the time, man. And I called the cops and called the cops. And I'm like, dog, you're just gonna have to move or something and have her not know where you live, because we can't really enforce this. So I mean, I got to give credit to the mother of my children here, because she'd moved here, I'm assuming, to get away from a lot of the stuff that was going on in Utah. I'm not going to speak on her life too much or anything, but
this woman that...
This was the mother of my children here that had already moved to Kentucky. That's why I came here in the first place.
Okay. So this is a previous relationship.
Yeah. Okay. And now, we'd been apart for like 9 years at that point in time. But So when she moves over here, I didn't want to be across the country with my kids. And I'm telling you, man, I'm like, you could make a movie out of my life. And so I shouldn't be alive. She keeps showing up at my house. I'm afraid I'm going to go to prison for life at this point in time. I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do. And I'm strung out, and I just called the mother of my children and I said, hey, I think I'm going to end up in prison. And I don't want to be away from my kids. And she's like, look, don't tell nobody, but I'm going to buy you a Greyhound ticket. All right. And you just come on out here and we'll get your stuff together. Your kids need you. And, we do not have a good relationship still, unfortunately, but that was like, I think that was one of those things where like God reached out there and like had he knew I needed that bridge, man. And I rode that Greyhound out there, and I lived in her house for like a month, and I was trying to find work, and then like I couldn't say no to people very good. And so this girl started harassing me again via email, and like I just slowly let her back into my life. And then one day she's like, I'm on my way.
And you're like,
and I was like, okay. Well, of course, she's not going to let me live in her house with my psycho girlfriend that she just saved me from.
Right. She's probably annoyed at you. Like you're making the same damn mistake.
Exactly.
Except you're just many states away.
Yeah,
like
exactly. And so when that all happened, like she showed up, I ended up homeless again. And like we're living in this couch surfing situation I was telling you about. But I remember I was like, okay, things need to change. I need to stop talking to certain people. I quit that shop on the spot, like walked out homeless, and I was like, I don't know where I'm going to go. I went to the town next to us. We're talking rural Kentucky, Moorhead to be specific, and Mount Sterling and Morgan County.
Yeah.
And I'm from a city, Salt Lake City, man. Like it was like 4 or 5 times the size of Lexington at least. And like,
so is this the first time you came to Lexington then? Like when you moved here from Utah, was that like, have you been here before?
No, I moved to rural eastern Kentucky from a city, and I didn't know what I was getting into.
Oh, okay. So you originally were from Moorhead area, went to Utah, then back to
I'm originally from Salt Lake City. I'd never been in the country before. I didn't even know what.
That's what I'm saying. So when you moved here with your ex and the kids, that was the first time you've been to Kentucky?
Correct.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah, bro, culture shock, dog.
Yeah, Salt Lake City is completely different.
Yeah. Well, I remember the first time somebody, and I'm not making fun of it here, but the first time somebody said I needed to change my oil. And I was like, oil? What are you talking about, dog? Cars don't have oil. And he's like, no, like you change the oil every 3,000 miles. And I'm like, okay, yeah, oil. Yeah, I got you. But, and I'm not making fun of people's accent, but it struck me. It took me months to understand people. Like I was like, why is this called Rowan County? Or Rowan County.
Yeah.
Like you don't row a boat. You don't row a boat. Okay. They didn't like it when I said that stuff though. But I got this job at a shop out in Moorhead. And I found a trailer, and I started renting a trailer with the dude who I had been couch surfing, who was couch surfing,
right.
So this is the secondhand couch surfer that I was with here. We get this trailer. I have barely a few pennies to rub together, but I'm starting to get the hang of it. And
you've already read these books, right? You've already started reading these books on like how to make better financial decisions.
And I'm the new dude in town. Which in rural Kentucky, man, like if you're from like looking like me, like, and I had a decent portfolio. So like, it was like I hit that town running, man. And I just started taking over, like the market in the area, like hard. I'm maybe not taking over, but just like
getting a lot of
large
work.
portions of it, I decided I was going to invest my last, like $600 I had at the time. And I was like 5 days away from the end of rent. And this is the funny part here is that I'm like, look, I'm going to invest this in this course that this tattooer was selling. And I'm like, man, if this doesn't work, if I can't turn this and make money around it almost instantly with it, I'm not going to have rent money. But I just took a leap of faith, man. And I spent the last of my money. I even messaged him, and we had a little falling out later. So I'm not going to mention names here too, but like, I was like, literally like, dude, if you screw me over, I'm going to fly back to Utah and kill you. Like I wasn't like, not like seriously threatening, but it was like, bro, like, please.
Like you understand I'm taking this serious. So I need you to take this serious.
Yeah, I need this. And, I used it, man. Like I didn't modify the game plan. I just took it for what it was.
Was it good?
This is the first time in my life I'd ever done that, man.
Right.
And it worked like a charm. I instantaneously started making more money. And it was just how to use social media to book your clients, man. And I was like at a time when I was like, social media is stupid. I don't like how fake people are. I'm not playing with this stuff. And it was
doesn't mean you have to be.
It was a negative mindset.
Yeah.
Dude, I was looking at all the worst things in life. I can walk past a dog turd on the street and smell it and get my face in it and put it all over my body, or I can walk past it and smell a flower.
Right.
You know, but they both exist, you know, like, when that started working, I was like, holy shit, bro. I just struck a gold mine. I don't have to make it up myself anymore.
Right.
That was mind blowing to me. I was raised by an old woman. I mean, like, I'm not saying anything negative about her, but it's just like, you know, it's hard for a woman that's 50 years older than you to teach you the lessons that a young man needs. It's just hard. Young men respond differently to men and fathers too. On top of that, you know, we model after them. We don't listen to them. And that's a powerful realization in and of itself. But that started working. I started making money hand over fist. And this dude's watching it after he sold me this course. And he sends me a message and he's like, hey, bro, like, I want to actually hire you. And I think I can make you probably $10,000 a month at my shop. Making $2,000 a month was a lot for me at that time.
Yeah.
And so I was like, what? You know, like, and he told me to shoot a 3-minute video of why I would be a good asset for the team. You know, and I took it real seriously. I shot the video, but right beforehand, he told me, you know, I'd have to move back to Utah, man. And so I called my kids and I arranged a visit. I went over there and I was like, I have an opportunity that'll be life-changing for everybody, you two, and everybody in the family included. But if I do, I'm going to have to leave here for a little bit. And I'll come back and visit whenever I can. I'm serious about phone calls, everything, but I'm going to have to leave for a bit. What do you guys want? And sorry, like, I'm like a little choked up about it.
No,
because
you're
it was like
good, man.
It was like the first
big. This is probably a big thing in your life at the time.
It was like the first not selfish thing I ever did, you know.
You're growing, man.
Yeah, and so they were like, "Daddy, we just want you to be happy," you know. And I mean, what kid doesn't want their parents to be happy?
Right.
But I just looked at him and I was like, I didn't ask you if you wanted me to be happy.
Right.
I asked you if you wanted me to stay. And they both cried and they told me, yeah. And I took an extra 15 seconds on the end of that video and I sent it to him. And I was like, look, man, I really appreciate this offer. And I didn't want to waste your time. So I still shot this because I feel like at the end of the day that this is something that's going to be so powerful when you hear this. It's important, man. But like, my kids can't have me move away. And so I just want to thank you for everything you've done for me. And I'm gonna build my empire out here the same way that you've taught me to. And I appreciate you. And he was just like, respect, man. Like, you couldn't have said it better. Like, I can't think of a reason why I would respect that more. But that turned around, man. And I went back to my kids and I was like, I'm going to open my own shop. I'm going to make $10,000 a month myself. So since then, COVID shut that shop down.
Yeah, COVID shut a lot of things down.
And then I met Cassie probably 4 months before I opened my own shop.
Okay.
And so I want to say this was late 2018 in the time, or early 2018, somewhere around there. And I just started grinding, dog. And I made so much money hand over fist. I was like, I thought I was a baller, bro. I was like, oh, man, like I made like $1,000 today. Holy crap, bro. And like, it was just such a powerful experience. But, you know, COVID shut me down. I fell into a deep depression, lost all the artists that were working for me, you know. And I've always tried to take good care of everybody that works for me, man, maybe even to my own detriment, which is something I've had to learn afterwards, that like, as a business owner, I'm actually selling everybody else down the river. If I let one person take advantage of me, that everybody else is getting damaged because of that, you know. But we moved to Morgan County. We buy a house, me and Cassie do, where her family has land there. Her papa used to own. And if you don't know Morgan County, Kentucky, try to imagine like the Moonshiners episodes that you've seen and stuff like that. And it's like kind of like that. Like they're great people, man. They're educated, but just in a different thing. They're educated in survival. They can survive out there in ways that I just was like, holy, how do you even know this guy?
Right.
You know, and I love that. But so it took 8 months for us to open a shop again. And we were just barely scraping it by, taking some loans from some family and stuff like that. October 22nd, 2020, right in the middle of COVID, we finally get back open. We finally get the green light. We got everything put together, and we've purchased an Amish cabin that was empty. I've like framed it. I've done everything that the state didn't require a licensed person to do. And we get this open, and from October 22nd until February 14th-ish, February 12th-ish, I don't remember when I actually checked the books, I think I cleared like $70,000. Which again, like to me, this is like, I've never made money like this before in my life. And so like, I'm like having to learn all these hard lessons on how you manage money when you, like, cause like if you can't manage $8,000 a year, $8,000, you know, or 10, 12, 15, 150 will kill you. Because
especially got to pay taxes. Like you've got to be prepared for this.
You simply, if you can't manage your money with a little bit of money, you do not have the character to manage large amounts of money. In fact, I would say that money magnifies your problems rather than solving them. So it also magnifies the good traits too, though. So like you just have to work on having more good traits as a person than bad traits, and the money will make those more accessible. But the hardest, part of this story, man, the part that changed me really the most, which is the part that, like you said, we were talking, God a little bit. This is like the moment that like I discovered God existed.
So we're going to get into the weeds here, the fun stuff, man. Yeah. Like, so you found your way back to the Lord. I mean, I would love a little more background and kind of going back to the farm and having, starting that tattoo shop and kind of what your life looked like. Cause it was like you were doing great, but you're also kind of going back down towards that rock bottom again, right? During that relationship.
Well, actually, what's funny about that is when I met Cassie, I had owned my own shop. Let me rephrase that. I opened my shop probably about 3 months after I met her. But when I met her, like I said, I thought money was my problem. Like, you know what? The reason my drugs were killing me and breaking my life apart and stuff like that was just because I didn't have enough money to afford the drugs.
Right.
I guess maybe I didn't think that directly, but it was like a reservation in the back of my mind. And when I got with her, I had like an episode where I relapsed, and I had somebody I knew in Utah mail me some drugs, some amphetamines to be specific. I never really used heroin, thank God. I'd probably be dead because most of the people I knew that did use heroin are dead now. But instantaneously, I started like having all the horrible side effects that methamphetamines produces.
Right.
Paranoia, psychosis. And the thing about it, man, is that when you're keeping a secret from everybody, because when I was using with people, it was a lot less of an issue because we all knew each other was using. But when you're trying to keep a secret from everybody, you don't have anybody you can be vulnerable with, and you're just a cooking time bomb.
Was Cassie doing them with you?
No, she wasn't. I was hiding it from her. She actually was an active member of NA at the time. I confessed to her about like 8 months afterwards, but I flushed all my dope. Actually, I had like an ounce of methamphetamines, which is a lot, especially for personal use. I mean, if you were smart,
and you were worried that money was.
Yeah, if you were smart, you could probably make that last a couple of months, but I wasn't.
And that's not cheap. I mean, that amount?
A couple $100 maybe.
Oh, okay.
A lot
so
less
it's
than you'd think, man.
Okay.
But it's definitely enough to cause a lot of problems, though.
Right.
I decided that my problem again, is what I'm using. I start smoking some weed again. Like I flush 3/4 of an ounce of amphetamines, which again, like I said, for personal, it's a lot. And so I literally opened it and I just threw it in the toilet because I didn't want it to be like,
right,
like fish the baggie out or anything like that. I just
like once it's gone, it's gone.
Had to make it gone.
Yep.
I did that and I was like, all right, well, I'm just going to smoke weed. We're going to be good. Not a big deal. And that's what I was doing for a long time. But when I met Cassie, she relapsed on weed with me. And we smoked and drank for a little bit. And then eventually she was like, you know what, man, I can't do this. I gotta get clean again. Like, I just can't live my life like this. And I was like, I just knew in my heart of hearts that if I used, that she would leave me. And so I was like, okay, I'll do it with you. Can I just finish this bag of weed that I have first, though? And so I did. Her clean date was a week ahead of mine because of that. But I did. The first year and a half I spent clean, I was clean because of codependency, which is
not because you wanted to do it on your own.
No, I wanted to be with her, man. Like, and I valued myself so much based off of relationships that it was like I had overvalued.
I think we all do it.
Yeah, man, for sure.
We all do it.
And that's why we wake up and get boundaries at 30 something,
Yes.
Yeah. So, year and a half clean, give or take. I proposed to her on December 24th of 2020. And I did it traditionally, man. Like I asked her father, I asked her son Dylan, I asked her mother, her brother, like all the people that were like the proper people. Like,
right.
They're Southern people too, so it's like you got to be on point with that stuff. And they were all just thrilled about it. They're like, you're like the best person that's ever been with her. I'm a big family dude no matter what. I was over at their house helping them all the time with stuff, and Cassie was an addict too, man. So they were used to her having pieces of shit around 24/7, so like that was my family, man. That was the first time I'd seen families stick together. My family didn't stick together, man. Like my family's just spread across the whole United States. Half of us don't talk to one another. Half of us are dead. The other half are addicts, and then the other half have boundaries by not talking to the rest of us. I was just blown away by how full life felt at that point, man. And at that time, I was what I would have called an evangelical atheist. I thought it was my job to disprove God to people. I thought it was my job to tell people that what they believed was retarded and that they should know better and, this, that, and the other. And I'd been that way my whole life, man. I have the word misanthropy tattooed on my forehead. That means somebody that hates humanity. I have 2 upside down crosses on my forehead, too, because I just wanted to be an edgy asshole, this is where God revealed himself to me because it could not have been a coincidence. Cassie was as country as it got, man. Like when I proposed to her, she was like, does a bear shit in the woods? And I was like, does that mean yes? I have that on film, man. It was a really great moment for sure. So about a month and a half after that, she decides that she's like going to get like some lip injection fillers and that she wants like this, bariatric surgery, I think it's called. I had kind of started to get a hang of the NA way or try to get a hang, of like what it meant to live clean and how to do that. So like I had a reasonable idea, but the first thing, and especially with how I look, I'm like deeply, intimately familiar with changing my outside to try to get the world to treat me some type of way. Right. And it doesn't work ever. It always has an opposite effect somehow.
Yes. Yeah, people probably have a very negative view of you with all the tattoos. Like they just think they literally judge a book by its cover.
Well, the thing is, man, is that like, crackheads look like crackheads. Like, so like we should judge books by their cover, but we should also allow it to be a good book. If you read it, sometimes a book with a crappy cover has an amazing story, and sometimes great covers make terrible books.
Yes. So true.
I tell people judge a book by its cover, because if it walks like a duck, quacks like a duck, it's probably a duck, but you might want to look at it for a little bit longer to determine if it's a duck still.
Right.
So yeah, we're doing good. Like I said, I'd made like $70,000 by this point. It was like February. My birthday's right around the corner. Our little anniversary from when we decided we were going to make it official was around the corner, which was Valentine's Day and February 15th, respectively. She 2 days before Valentine's just was like, "Hey, can you come out to the shop?" Which was on our property. It was just like right next to our, in front of our house there. And I came out and she was like, I can't do this anymore. And I was like, what do you mean? Like tattoo? Because I'd taught her how to tattoo, do cosmetic, piercings, like all this stuff, man. Like I basically gave her a whole career on top of, we were together and shit. And she was like, no, like us. And I'm like, we own a business and a house. That might be a little bit more difficult to do than getting divorced to get that separated. Okay. No. And she was like, we argued for like 2 hours, and eventually she was like, fine, you know what, you're right, I'm being crazy. I was like, thank God, like, thank God. And then again, 2 days later, it happened again, man. And she was just committed that time. And it was like, I often say that if she hadn't died, I would tell everybody how bad I hated her and what a horrible person she was. But that might not be true, because I've grown up enough to know that people that hurt you are just simply acting out of whatever's going on inside of them. Like, it's not personal. Like, The 4 Agreements is a great book for that, because it talks about that. Like, nothing that I could ever do to you is personal to you. It might feel that way, but it's because of who I am, not because of who you are. And she drained the bank account, took all the money out of it. And then cut me out $1,500. And it was like, here's your half of whatever the bank account was. I didn't see what the balance was beforehand. I don't know. I imagine that there was a lot of funny stuff going on. I found out later on that she had been trying to help one of her ex's sisters help get him clean or figure out where he could go, because he was like batshit crazy off on methamphetamines and all that stuff. And you can't drag a crackhead out of the crack house. You'll die doing that. You actually have to just hope your loved ones and family members fix themselves. It's the only way you can do it. Plant some seeds in the meantime. And so of course I'm like, no, we're not helping him. Sorry. Like he's going to have his family do that. It's not our problem. Well, she'd gone and started talking to him. The reason why you'll die when you go into the crack house to save the crackhead is you'll start doing the crack, especially if you're an addict. Like you'll like,
if you don't have it's hard to, I'm guessing, to have that self-control when you've already been there once.
Even if you do have the self-control, man, how do you think people try that? Everybody knows it's bad, but if you're at the barbershop for long enough, you're going to get your hair cut. If you hang out there long enough, you're going to do it too.
Yeah,
you'll find a way. You'll reason it out some way. It'll happen. Even if, like, I don't think that there's such thing as an addict or a non-addict. I think that it's just decisions that create these problems for us, and they have long-reaching, ramifications. But I digress. So she gets this surgery, and they prescribe her some like Loratab liquid gel. Like, it's like a cough syrup, but it doesn't have cough syrup in it. It's just liquid Loratabs. She started taking, she called them nerve pills. I didn't know until later that there were Xanaxes, but I never did downers. So like I wasn't familiar with that whole world. And there was like a lot of signs when I look back now, but I was living through it, and hindsight's always 20/20. But I believe that she'd relapsed with him. And I tell that story because I want backstory to say that I don't hold animosity towards her or him. It just makes more sense in context when I tell it like that, because what happens when addicts relapse is that they push everyone away from them, and the most effective way to push people away from you who care about you enough to try to stop you is to hurt them real bad and then run away. And that's what she did. She broke up. She took the money. She shut my cell phone down. I had to pay off my cell phone, the entire cell phone, to be able to put another SIM card in it.
Right.
So I had to buy like groceries. I had to buy toiletries.
You got to find a new place to live.
Everything all at once. And this is on top of the fact that she started calling one of the local sheriffs and saying that I had been beating her and that I had been doing this, that, and the other, which was crazy because she was helping me beat those charges that I had told you about from Utah. And that was who she was regularly. Those were the type of dudes that she was attracted to normally, which luckily enough, I tattooed the local police and stuff. So when they called me, they're like, hey man, there's like unfortunately, I hate to tell you this, it's been a while, but this is a pattern of behavior for her, man. And the best thing you could possibly do is run, because it's going to get real bad if you don't. We've seen this before. Imagine me, like I was like, my life's together. I got a family.
Right.
I got a place my kids are visiting regularly. And all that got ripped out from me all at once, man. And here's the thing, like divorce, moving, losing a job, having a death in the family, those are like considered to be some of the 4 most stressful things a human being can go through. All 4 of those things happened to me at once. She died. This all happened within 2 weeks too, by the way, too. Like, so she kicked me out. I'm living in this tat trap I was telling you about yesterday, where I just like had a hovel I lived in the back that had food everywhere. It looked like a trap house anywhere but except for where I was tattooing, because I knew I had to keep that area looking nice,
Oh, you got to be clean, hygienic.
Yeah, exactly, man. I'd been doing it for 18 years, 17 years at that point. So it wasn't like I didn't know what I was doing. I get you. Ass that. So I was like, I told my sponsor at the time all about what was happening. And he was like, man, why would you want to get with somebody that's doing all that to you? And I was like, that's actually a really good point, man. Maybe I should just cut my losses and go. And so I did, man. And I was crying a lot. I was just broken. I had a support network of a lot of people I was talking to, luckily enough. So, that was good, because that was the first time I'd ever bothered to build a support network with something.
Right.
And then I found out this shop here in Lexington existed, and again, like I said, I was broke, dude. But they were like, I came and did a tour, and I swear I felt the presence of God, and I just couldn't have put it on there yet because I didn't know what that felt like yet. Thank you. I appreciate you. I just remember touring the shop, and I was like, this is my future. And this is going to change anybody's lives who comes to work here with me and is committed at this lifestyle as I can be. And it'll change everybody that touches it if they'll let it. And it has for anybody. Like literally, there's so many people I know who are tattooing in other cities, other states right now that have started tattooing with me. And I'm not saying that as like, oh, look at me or anything like that. I just give everything I have away, man. Like I don't want to be close to the vest on that stuff. So I did that with her. I taught her how to tattoo, everything like that, man. So she takes the business. She's tattooing out of there, man. Like I built this fucking place. I was so mad, bro. And I'm like sitting in the, like, I remember being on like a 45-minute phone call, maybe 2-hour phone call with one of my friends at the time who was helping me with a lot of this stuff and manage a lot of these emotions. And he was like, man, have you tried praying about this? And I was like, I don't fucking pray, dude. I don't believe in God, and I don't believe that that's going to help. And he's like, I don't care if you believe it or not, because at the end of the day, man, like one of the tenets of our like fellowship here is that you have to be fucking willing. So are you willing to try this, or do you want to just die in that fucking hovel? And I was like, okay, whatever, dude. And he's like, I want you to pray for Cassie and her boyfriend. Excuse me?
Right.
Did you just tell me to pray for my soon-to-be ex-fiance, ex-wife, whatever you want to call that shit, and the boyfriend that she got back with after she ruined my fucking life? And he's like, yeah, that's exactly what I told you to do, man. Like, sprinkle some love on this situation and watch how it changes. And I'm sitting in a bathtub at the time because I spent, like, I love baths. I don't know what it is, man, but I spent like a lot of time in a bathtub crying, bro. Like, and so like I hang up with him, man, and I start crying and I'm fucking praying for him. I'm like, just please, like, I know that she's using. There's no other way for me to explain this. And especially when like they were like posting pictures of them two together. And I mean, when you use opiates, your pupils turn into pinpricks. They're tiny. They're almost non-existent. And I that was going to be my wife. I knew what her fucking eyes looked like. And I just remember every time I was like, she's high, she's high, she's high, she's high. And I was calling her family like, please just hear me. Fentanyl is everywhere. She's going to die. Like, somebody needs to pay attention to this. And, yeah, so I found out this place exists. It's $10,500 fucking dollars to put a down payment on here. I had $200 in my pocket. I'm like, well, can I blow you?
Right.
I mean, all joking aside, man, I went home and I stacked my schedule for the I was booked out about 5 months at the time, and I stacked my schedule from the very last month, and I asked everybody that was willing to on that last month to come in and double stack my days, and I made $10,400, and my mom wired me $1,000 just to help me make it through, and that was actually the last time I've ever accepted money from my mother. I want to give her money now. I want to take care of her now. And that was just like, I had the money. It was just like, man, like now I can afford to drive to Lexington and fucking pay these guys.
Right.
And I made this live video and I'm like crying my eyeballs out. I'm like, dude, I'm so happy. Like, I don't know what happened, but like the universe is just smiling on me and this thing is going to happen now. And I set the phone down and I call my sponsor. I wire him all the what do you call it? Paperwork so he can like review it. 'Cause he's a business owner and he can look at all the legalities of it. And he calls me back and he's like, it's good. And then I'm like, bet. I'm getting my keys ready and I get a call from her aunt. She's like, this is the only aunt that was talking to me throughout all this. The whole rest of the family stopped talking to me. She told him I was gay. She told people like, it was crazy, man. Like, and since they all knew her, of course they take her side. I wouldn't expect her family to take my side, but I was alone. I had nobody and I don't know anybody. Like, so everybody I knew her, and, like I get this phone call and Cassie's dead. And I was like, no, she's not. Don't fuck with me. I can't take this right now. And he's like, no, she's dead. They found her this morning at like 6:00. She OD'd. And I was like, fucking Jesus, man. Like, you're kidding me. Are you serious? And I put the phone down and I can't cry yet. I feel like I just got hit by a fucking bus,
Of course.
And 2 minutes later, cops knock on my door and they want to interview me. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on right now? Like, why are you guys interviewing me? What happened, unfortunately, is her mother found her, and of course, like, we recently broke up. She found her daughter dead. They don't know exactly what happened yet. They think it might be an OD. They think it might be this. They think it might be that. And so I'm like actually a suspect. And they come and interview me and they're like, well, do you know where she got the dope from? Or do you know what was happening? And I was like, I would wager if you look at all these pictures on her Facebook where she's clearly high, that it was the person right there that she was with. That dude, her little ex-boyfriend she got back with. I served this dude on a platter to these guys because it's a small town. Everybody knew me. And once she died, they all knew what was going on. They started talking to me again. They're like, oh, you're not gay. You're not a piece of shit. You're not all these things that she said she was. This makes sense now. And I'm like,
right.
She had a history of this stuff, guys. Why did nobody talk to me? Like, why'd y'all know what? But, I get it, man. Like, I don't hold any grudges on that stuff, but like, that was just rugged, bro. Like, I mean, I remember, I never wanted to use again, man, but I remember waking up and I'd look at this fucking Kel-Tec rifle that I had in the fucking corner, man, and I would wonder every day how much better a bullet was going to taste than how I felt, man. It took the fucking wind out of my sails, man. And they were high. And I had a phone call with another friend at the time. I was going to like 3 meetings a fucking day, 4 meetings a day. Sometimes I would be on a Zoom meeting driving from West Liberty an hour and a half. I'd wake up at 4:30, drive to Lexington, do construction on my shop all day long until about, not all day long, all morning long until like 11. I would turn around, drive back to West Liberty, tattoo from like 12:30 until 2 o'clock in the morning and wake up and do it again. And I was a full zombie, man. And I kept telling my story and the fact that that's how I was staying clean in these meetings and stuff like that. And people started saying, "Hey man, I'm proud of you. Like, hey man, like you're inspiring me." And, like I didn't know that being alive could fucking make somebody happy, could make them inspired. I've never valued my own life, like I've only recently learned how to do it, and respect myself and respect what I bring to the table. And, he said, I called him and I was like, "Man, I don't know what I'm going to do, but if anything you tell me to do, I'll do it." Okay. Like, the praying helped. Thank you. But, I'm afraid I'm going to kill myself, man. I don't want to, but I keep thinking about it and I have kids and I don't know what I'm going to do, man. And I'll jump backwards and paint my face purple. I'll cut my fucking dick off if you tell me to. I don't care, man. Like I will do anything. I am willing, just like you said before. Am I willing or not? And he said, "Man, like just keep doing it. And I just want you to tell everybody you know this story. Because one day you're going to tell this story to somebody who doesn't know you, or maybe they do know you and they're going through something that's super fucking hard right now. And they're thinking about killing themselves. And if you don't fucking open your mouth and tell them this story, you're partially responsible for not helping them through that." And it was like, it hit me like a bolt of fucking lightning. It was like all at once, man. I was like, saw God coming out of the fucking clouds. And it was like, here's your purpose, bro. But like to line things up, man. And it gets even crazier than this, but like, I wasn't in the house. I didn't find her. I wasn't around the drugs when she was using them. I can only imagine what I would have done if I'd found her with the fucking needle in her arm or whatever they found her with, man. I had a support network I built up because she broke up with me. She'd shattered my heart so thoroughly that I had already been treating her like she was dead. I'd blocked her on all platforms, man. And she had audacity, dog. I mean, she had the audacity to find a way to message me and ask me if I could fucking still print stencils out for her when I was living in the tat trap, bro. And I'm like, "No, go buy your own fucking stencil printer." Like,
right.
This is mine. I bought this shit. I brought it in here. And, but man, like that was rough. I went and signed the lease and fucking went to her funeral on the same day, wore the same suit. Like that was how serious it was, man. Like I called the people and I was like, "Man, I had a death in the family. I don't know what else to tell y'all, but can I come on like Monday?" Because it was Friday at the time. I just don't think I'm gonna make it out this weekend, man. They did. They cut it off, and I went to the funeral on the same day. I signed the lease on that one, and I started doing something crazy, man. I just started making a video on Facebook every day and just talking about my experience and talking about the pain and talking about the problems. And I'm sure you've heard the phrase that if you teach something, you get to learn it twice. And I just treated it like it was a journal, man. I just talked about what I was going through. I talked about my custody battle that I had to go through once I moved here to Lexington, man. I have full custody of my daughter now, man. And like, and my daughter is fucking flourishing, bro. But again, my best thinking, man, I'm still an idiot at that point. And, I'm crying every night. I'm freaking out. I'm going to meetings all the time though. And I'm kind of getting my spirit right. And I'm like, man, like, the best way to get over a girl is to get under one, right? Like, have some meaningless sex, bro. Like that'll take care of it for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
Don't do that, guys. Don't do that. Seriously. But I got Tinder. I was like, I literally would be tattooing one of my buddies and we're talking about it, like looking on Tinder, swiping and stuff like that. Like, it was so trashy, man. And, I just get a like back from, who's now my wife. And she had that motherfucking app deleted, bro. And she just got an email that's like, somebody liked your profile after like 2 years and you've been on this fucking thing. And, I was raised by an old woman, so I have like old school manners. And I just messaged her and I was like, "Hey, you're pretty. I'd like to go on a date with you, but I need to give you the preamble that I'm probably a basket case right now. My fiance died like a month ago. And I'm honestly just so lonely I could use some company." Well, she responds back and was like, "What the fuck is a date? Nobody's ever taken me on a fucking date before." And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, we just go to a movie or some food. Like, what are you talking about? Like, and so she's like, yeah, can my friend come? Because that way you won't kill me or like, axe murder me or something like that. And I was like, yeah, no big deal. Well, we met at Agave and Rye here by the mall.
Good ass food.
Dude, fucking fire food, bro. But like, here's the funny thing. I met her on Tinder. They have the swipe right taco when we walk in, and I'm like, what are the fucking chances? The random place I choose has something from like a taco named after Tinder. And she pulls up and we start talking, and she talks to me and she tells me, as I'm telling her my story, and she's like, yo, like, the father of my children got murdered out in East End about 5 years ago. Or it was at the time, it was like 3. And it's still unsolved, and it's, so I'm like, I'm really familiar with this pain that you're talking about. And it was like an instantaneous trauma bond. Like, we knew what each other had been through. And, I keep telling myself, like, it's probably TMI. I keep telling myself, like, I'm not, like, I actually kind of like this girl. She seems cool. Maybe sex isn't the right answer. Like, we go out into the parking lot. We parked next to each other. Why? How? Like, I was in the restaurant waiting for her.
Right.
So she didn't know what kind of car I drove. My license plate has her birthday in it. Come to find out later the next day, her email address has my home zip code in it. Why does she have my home zip code in it? It's not associated with anything in Kentucky.
Right.
She just chose that number out of the blue, and it was my home zip code. And the little connections like that get so deep and so wild with us sometimes. It's like we were both raised by our grandparents. We both of our parents, I had my grandfather died early on in life when I was about 11 years old, but he was my father, and it felt like my father died, her father died when she was about 14. She was raised by her grandparents too. Like, the parallels are just like one after another.
Right,
it's so
right,
crazy.
right.
And we're from different worlds too. Like, I'm like an old punk rocker dude, and she's like, hip hop, like, likes that like street urban kind of stuff. But I'm digging this girl, man. Like, I'm like, man, like, she's got principles, she's got boundaries. Like, that's fucking sexy, dog. Like. And she's like, one day, like Easter on 2021, she's like, hey, so you want to come to my church with me for Easter? And I was like, gay. No. But I didn't say that. What I wanted to say was that. And instead I was like, yeah, sure, I'll come. But in the back of my head, I was like, I'm going to go. And then I'm going to pretend like I didn't like it, because I won't.
Right.
And then I'll just won't come back. And it'll be a problem solved. This church ain't for me. I believe in God, but it ain't for me. And, I'm sitting in the back, man, and I just like, my pastor has like a way with words sometimes that speaks to me, and he's really big about like the meaning behind words and like some of the ancient words that like we don't really understand the context of sometimes. And he was just like speaking to my spirit, man. And I was just like, man, like, well, this guy's like talking some truth right now.
Church will do that to you. Right? Like God will put the right sermon in front of you when you need to hear it.
Absolutely. Every time, man. And
it's amazing.
He just like stops in the middle of the sermon and he makes eye contact with me, which was like one of the weirdest things anybody's ever done. Like, I've never had somebody in church stop and look at me. And now I expect stuff like that because of how I look.
Right.
But, and he just points at me and he says, I want you to know that you're not a mistake and you're here on purpose for a purpose. And again, I was kind of abandoned by my parents, man. Like, and I was conceived like definitely not on purpose. Okay. And, I just started weeping, man. And he, offered to have me give my life to Jesus at the end of the sermon, man. And, I really quietly said it to myself, and I took my phone and I was like, and she's standing next to me right here, sitting next to me right here. And there's like a little QR code on the seat in front of me in this church. Like, that says, if you just gave your life to Jesus, please tell somebody. And I was like, so she couldn't see me taking this photograph because I'm like so embarrassed, man. Like, I've got an upside down cross tattooed on two of them on my forehead. They're subtle. They're hard to see unless you look at it for a second, but they're there, we left and she was like, why were you crying in there? Well, let me rephrase that. When the sermon ended, PK, Pastor Kevin, jumped off. Like, he always walks over to the side and lets people come to him and like filter in and out and talk to him, because a lot of people want to talk to him after the sermon.
Right, of course. That makes sense.
And he like borderline shouldered people out of the way to get to me. It was so weird. Like, I was like, he like jumped off the front, like walked right up to me and was like, hey man, I'm glad you're here. And I was like, thanks, bro. Like I hugged him and I was like, I've been crying. I just gave my life to God and I don't know what to do. I don't want to tell anybody because I'm embarrassed. And I was like, it's okay, man. You tell me when you're ready. And I just gave him a hug, and we, left. And then like my now wife, Lacey, at the time, my lightweight girlfriend, we'd known each other for like a month and a half, 2 months at this point, was like, how did you like it? And I'm like,
I might be back.
I might come again. I don't know, man. I don't know. I'll have to think about it. And then she just started inviting me every Sunday, man. And partially through a little bit of codependency because I wanted to impress her,
Right.
I just started going, man. And it just kept speaking to my spirit over and over again. And one day I just confessed to her, I was like, yeah, I gave my life to Jesus really early on here. And I just didn't know how to tell you, I'm embarrassed, and she's like, I'm not stupid. Like, as a man, let me tell anybody that watches this, your woman already knows everything you're fucking doing. She's either tolerating it or she's about to tell you about yourself. Okay. Like, and you should listen, because your wife probably knows more about you than you know about yourself. But that dude, like, I was always with like whores, like I'm like all the wrong kinds of women. And with how I look, I attract that shit. But luckily enough, Lacey and I are both reformed, man. We're both ex-addicts. We're both, from the streets. We both have done all kinds of stuff that we're not proud of. But we walk an imperfect life together, man. I started watching a lot of Jordan Peterson too. I'd seen like that on the Joe Rogan podcast, and I was like, I like this guy. And I started watching
He's great.
Dude, have you watched his biblical series, dog?
I've heard like snippets on TikTok and stuff like that, but he really brings things like he talks about things, and they just like, you're like, oh, I get that. That makes perfect sense.
He has a way to render things in a way that's easy to understand, man. And that if you can make anybody understand it, especially somebody as ridiculous as me, then you're doing a good job. And I started watching those series, man. And like, there was one where he talks about like marriage, and he talks about Adam and Eve, man. And like, he's like, they took the rib from the side of Adam so that he doesn't try to walk in front or behind her, and keeps her as his companion. And I was like, wow, what a profound statement. Like, the Bible, you're telling me that the Bible actually has some stuff that makes sense in it? And I started reading this shit afterwards, man. Like, and it's so full of profound wisdom, and people overlook it because they can find one sentence they don't like, man. But like, there's like, if you have a hard time arguing with your ladies, it says dead ass right at the end, when God's casting Adam and Eve out of the Garden of Eden, that he's increasing her pain in childbirth and the pain that she experiences as a result of her children, which I believe is a result of the woman actually knowing that her children are also mortal now. Like, what a fucking, like, women are connected, man. They shared a body with that kid.
Right.
That's crazy, bro. And it then goes on to say that you will be ruled over by your husband. You shall confound him all the days of his life. It's biblical that you and your wife are going to argue sometimes, and I always ran away from people when shit got too crazy. And I just decided not to do it anymore, man. And we got married to get right with God and IRS, because it was a feature where we're like, oh man, taxes next year are going to be fucking brutal if I'm filing single again, man. Because, and not to brag, man, but I went from, barely clearing maybe $1,000. I didn't pay taxes for 10 years, and I had so little income that you could track that the IRS was like, fuck it, don't even care.
Right.
And I went from that, and I opened my shop in Lexington, and I went from $0 to my second year open, fiscal year, I cleared $760,000 fucking dollars. So clearly something was working right, and it happened after I started giving my life to God.
Yeah.
It happened.
It's amazing, right?
And right now I'm in the middle of this weird season where it's like been a lot of a pruning season, man. It's like, I feel like he's been removing a lot of the people from my life that don't need to be there, that I tolerated, or,
probably bringing new people into your life that you need.
Well, what's interesting, man, is that I don't tell people stuff anymore. If people want my information, because I have a wealth of information about a number of different subjects, and I share it freely, they're going to have to come ask me for it. And I'll share it as much as I can anyway. But if I talk to you every day and I notice that you're not listening to me when I'm talking, or if I notice that you're not taking what I'm saying seriously, I'll just stop talking to you about that shit, because I'm not going to waste my energy with it.
Right,
and frankly, I'm wasting your time too, listening to it if you don't want to. What's the most interesting thing, man, is that like you were talking about how like God's like removed these things from you, and it's been like miraculous, man. But when I got married, The other thing is I wanted to get right with God, man, because I watched some of those Jordan Peterson things, and like statistically, if you live with the woman that you're going to get married to for longer than 6 months to a year before you get married, you're likely more to get divorced.
Right.
And I was like, weird. Why? Well, it's because you're treating them like an option. Well, I'm not sure about this. But what makes marriage so beautiful, man, is that you chain yourself to another fucking insane person. Because if they were Mr. Right and they knew who the fuck you were, they'd run fucking screaming into the hills because we're all batshit, bro. You know, like if they knew all my dark secrets, they wouldn't want anything to do with me, but they got dark secrets too, so they accept it. Right? And that when we chained each other together with that, when we got serious about it, because she's never been married before, and I've been married twice before. Both times it was the wrong reasons both times. And
you have God in between the both of you now.
That's when I asked my pastor, I was like, I want to marry her, man. I want to get right with God. How do I know if she's right? And he's like, if she's right, if she's the one that drives you to God.
Yeah.
And I was like,
and if God's the most important thing in that relationship, for sure, 100%.
We watched a really good movie called The Jesus Revolution. Have you seen it?
Yeah, it's really good.
It's
Yeah,
so good,
it's on
man.
Netflix, I believe. Yeah, it's pretty inspirational.
Yeah. Two things, man, in that one. One, when he says, do the drugs not work anymore, bro? I cried my eyes out, man. I cried my fucking eyes out with that one. And the other thing is that, like, it's just the come as you are aspect of it, man.
Right.
Like, it's just like imperfect people practicing at something that is perfect. And I realized that, like, when I accepted myself for all my flaws, I could fucking function again. When I stopped trying to pretend like I wasn't flawed and fucked up, all of a sudden I had more bandwidth to fucking do the good things. And I started becoming a better father. I started becoming more present. I started becoming like things just worked out.
Everything got better. I bet your
It's
business
crazy,
just
man.
overnight probably you saw a change in your business.
Bro, absolutely. Right now we're going through kind of a weird thing too, though, like because like the economy is like we're finally seeing a snapback from when they stopped with all these free money situations they were doing. You know, staying out of politics for the most part here, but people are starting to get a little bit tight with their money on it, and tattoos are a luxury item. You know what I mean?
100%.
But here's the thing, man. Nobody can work harder than me. I don't believe a single person in this country is going to be willing to work as hard as I am to do this. And maybe the world. I know for sure.
Gary Vee might get into an argument with you over that.
Yeah. Agreed. Gary Vee has infrastructure I don't have.
Yeah. Very true.
I doubt Gary Vee is looking up, like, as a tattoo artist or as somebody who maybe is looking for clients. Let me tell you something. Stop casting a wide fucking net on social media. You're being stupid. Okay. Like, that's ridiculous. Like, quit trying to find like your one client to do business with by saying, hey, do you like what I did to the world? That's retarded. Okay. So go find people that make the type of money that have clients that you want to have. Go find the type of people that you want to rub shoulders and elbows with and start friending them and start interacting with their fucking content. And here's the part. This is why I stopped telling people this, bro, because I've told every tattooer I've ever known since I started doing this stuff. None of them do it.
Right. And you'd be surprised how many tattoo artists that you look up to or another tattoo artist looks up to and friends them and starts talking to them. Not every tattoo artist, but I bet you there's a bunch that would respond and give advice freely because they're just like, oh, man, that's awesome. This person is like...
The old schoolers didn't do that, man. They played it close to the vest because they weren't good artists, bro.
Things have changed now. Yeah, the same thing in the barber world. Mm-hmm. I know a guy that's a barber now, and he started following these local barbers, Issa and Fouad. His name's Max, and he started following them and then started reaching out to them, started asking them questions. Mm-hmm. And one thing led to another. Now he's working in their barber shop. He went to barber school, and I don't think any of that might have happened for Max if it hadn't been for the fact that Max was reaching out to them, interacting with them, and these two barbers were more than happy to share their experience with them.
So, like, just like today, for example, like I'm not familiar with the sports ball stuff as much as people in Kentucky are.
Yeah, well, they take the UK football stuff really serious. Yes, really serious here.
So I've had to learn a lot of that stuff. Plus, my son Christian is really into basketball, so I've been learning that too. But somebody talked about, like, they're always asking, like, hey, you tattoo the UK players here ever? I bet you're on campus. That's crazy. Like, I just had this wild idea because we were talking about it in a meeting the other day, and I was like, why don't we, just friend some of those guys and interact with their content and stuff like that. I said that yesterday, did it the day afterwards, and then immediately I woke up this morning to a message in my inbox from one of the UK football players, and I was like, see, what evidence right here, guys. Right. But there's no account. I don't know what it is, man. There's some weird thing implanted in human beings for maybe it's the flaw, maybe it's the fall, whatever you want to call it, man, where we have you ever noticed that like when you know something is important and good and is what you're supposed to be doing, that for some reason it almost like becomes more difficult to motivate yourself unless you get a rhythm going or a consistency going. Like until I have a habit, man.
Habits are important.
Doing the stuff that's very important to me is actually something I have to completely and constantly work very hard at not sabotaging. And I know a lot of people just pretend like you're going to pick him up. He's like, no, I'm kidding.
I'm going to jump off now.
I like everything I ever wanted was on the other side of responsibility. And I discovered that through this process. And I've discovered that through the process of reading the Bible and becoming spiritual and having a revelation of the word by taking time alone with God, you know? And that's been a huge action of these little talks that I do on Facebook and Instagram too, because I've spent so much time talking about philosophy and talking about what's right and wrong and what's important in life and stuff like that, that I've had the opportunity to basically narrow it down so laser beamed in that I know exactly what I want. It's not even a question anymore. So when you know what you want, you just compare your actions daily to whether or not that like meets the goal long term. Right. And it's a simple process. God implanted us with this thing right here called our conscience that tells you if you should be doing the shit you should be doing 24/7. Like,
and we still don't listen to it sometimes.
Nobody wakes up at 30 years old and is like, porn's good for you. You know, like, nobody wakes up at 30 years old and is like, oh man, crack is probably not that bad. You know, like alcohol's not bad. Obviously, you know, everything in moderation, you know, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But I think that we've degraded what it is to be a man so thoroughly in the world that we've actually degraded what it means to be a woman. We've degraded what it means to be a kid. We've degraded what it means to be everything else. And I don't think that men are the defining aspect of it, but we have a thing that we do that nobody else in the world does, that women and kids aren't responsible for. Fucking violence. But for 400 years ago, what was your job as a man for a family? Just put it out there.
Yeah. I mean, it was to provide for them. It was to protect them.
Mm-hmm. And how did you do that? Violence.
Yeah, if need be.
It's our product, man. You had to kill a deer. You had to rip the crops out of the thing. You had to tear the dirt apart. You had to use violence to prepare everything for God to grow it. You didn't have to grow it. Luckily enough, the miracle part of it was God's part.
Right.
You just prepared it and dropped the seed in it, and he did the miracle. Thank God that's not our job, man. Like, thank God that I only have to plant seeds in people I'm around, and I can let God germinate them, and I don't have to.
Right.
It makes my job a lot easier. But, like, our product is violence. And it's controlled violence. The only thing that stops bad people in shitty situations, you know, or bad people in bad situations, is good people that are willing to be more violent than the bad people are. At the end of the day, that's the only thing that's going to stop that. You know, I know this is an argument that would, you know, tie into a lot of political debates, but it's just our product, man. Women bring to the table something that's such an insane superpower. I like, it brings me to tears to understand how powerful it is, man. Making a person is a fucking miracle.
Right.
And so, like, people are like, what does she bring to the table? She can make another you, dog. Why don't you calm down about all that and figure out how you can respect her and treat her like a fucking woman, and you'll watch her act like a woman. It's crazy. Like, the more masculine I am in my household, the more my wife responds to it. And that's like, I think it's biblical, man.
Yeah. Good spiritual leadership, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, she knows deep down that if shit hits the fan, it's going to be her job to get the kids to wherever they need to be protected. And it'll be my job to stand in front of that. And that's just an unwritten, unspoken understanding between us. And we've spoken about it too, but it was understood beforehand. Like, I've always been on that level. And since it's going to be my job to put my life on the line to keep everybody safe, that means that any consequences that anybody else in the family experiences, it's also my job now to try to mitigate those as best as possible, because that's getting in the way of these consequences, so that we can have a household where we simulate life for our children in a way that they get to have a kind of a video game experience and get the XP to be an adult later on. So like, I've learned how to be a man by doing all the wrong things for 36 years, 35 years, however long it was until I started trying to make better decisions long term. That's the best teacher I can possibly imagine, because like, I know what not to do. And by process of elimination, it's not even a guess on what I should be doing. But this violence concept, man, it's going to come up. Society always collapses. Society always has problems. We have this lid on society where we try to pretend like we're peaceful. Everybody's like, oh, you should just be nice to everybody. Who is like that? No, but like, our culture is so full of wannabe pretentious people that want to be like, what's the word for it? Like, I want to be empathetic to people, but love is not an action of accepting and check marking everything you fucking do. Love is an action of trying to look at the greatest good of everything involved and push everybody towards that, no matter how uncomfortable it is. If a father loves his children, he doesn't let them be fucking soft. And that's hard. As a father, I have to break my own heart by breaking my kids' hearts in selective ways, just a little bit here and there to try to build them up. To build cement, man, you have to break fucking rocks and add stuff together to make something stronger than the rocks. Everything we do is based off of breaking something down and rebuilding it. You're going to break down this podcast later on, cut it into pieces, and then rebuild it. And you're going to commit an act of digital violence on it to create something better. And we've litigated and legalized this action that men participate in so thoroughly that dudes have no fucking purpose anymore.
Or they're scared to do things because they're going to get persecuted for just being a dude.
Yeah. Like, arguably, man, I've never looked at somebody and said, yeah, that's exactly what insert ethnicity would say or insert what a woman would say in that situation. But I have been looked at and told so many fucking times that that's exactly what a cishet white dude would say. And you're like, bro, did you just do what you don't want me to do to you? Like, what the fuck is going on right now?
A lot of hypocrisy.
Yeah. Well, hypocrisy. We're all hypocrites, man.
Oh, yeah. 100%.
That's the part that I think that everybody's missing out on, is everybody is in this pursuit of perfection instead of the pursuit of a relationship with perfection. I can't be perfect, man, and I know I'm not going to be perfect.
Right.
And that's where everything changes, man. Like, and I mean, how recently did you give your life to
like
Christ?
3 months ago. Yeah.
That's really recent, man.
Yeah. But I mean, my life is exponentially got better in so many different ways. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
Man. It's miraculous.
It's like, I mean, shit. You may not even have said anything to me in the sauna when we first met. If I think I said something about the Lord and you're like, oh, I just feel the need to interject into this conversation right here, right now. Yeah. Next thing we know, a week later, you're sitting in front of me doing a podcast and we're talking about doing a tattoo.
That's God right there, man.
Like
let me put this to you, man. Like, I used to mix crack, meth, and heroin together and smoke them out of a bong that was this tall. Okay. I had seizures and I think
so. You have done heroin a couple times. Then
I would when I say I didn't do heroin, I mean I didn't do it seriously. Like I would dabble with it, or I've never injected anything, but I would you can smoke, snort, and inject almost any fucking drug as it is, except for weed. But I was mixing all these together, and I'd take these monstrous fucking hits off it, and I would have a seizure, and then I would have amnesia for like a day and a half. And I did that like 9 or 10 times before I finally was like, I should probably stop doing this. So I should be fucking dead, bro. Imagine all the times where you've had a close brush with death in your life, and you've pulled through for nothing but it seems like a random chance.
No.
Why is it that I have 100% success ratio at anything I don't quit?
Right. Well, when we met,
it's spiritual, bro.
When we met, I had a blood clot in my leg, the size of from the top of my calf all the way down to my ankle, and I had blood clots in every level of my right lung, multiple blood clots. When we met in the sauna, and I went to PT. What day did we go? Sunday? Was it? I can't remember what day it was.
I want to say Sunday.
Yeah. 2 days later, I went to my PT. He says, you need to go to the ER right now. So I went to the ER, and they found these blood clots a little over a week ago.
What were your symptoms? Why did he think you needed to go to the...
Is
it a personal trainer?
No, not personal trainer. Sorry, my physical therapist. Oh, okay. So I went in there. I was there for my right knee, and I was like, I'm having issues with the calf. I think I pulled something in it, and he looks at it, talks to me, get some information. Is like, you either really did something serious to your one of your hamstrings. I think the symbiosis, I think is what that hamstring is, but or you, and not to scare you, but you have a blood clot in your leg, and I think you should go to the ER right now. So I'm like, okay. So I go to the ER, find out I have blood clots in my leg. I have multiple blood clots in every level of my lung.
Yeah, terrifying.
They've been there for over 3 weeks, or right around 3 weeks.
Do you know what caused them?
They're blaming TRT, testosterone. I think it's either the COVID vaccine or I have a rare kidney disease called Berger's disease.
Yeah.
And if you get online, there's tons of information of people with my same disease that had blood clot issues at an earlier age, right?
Yeah.
They just overlooked it because they're like hormone therapy replacement, like that has to be the testosterone.
Bro, isn't it crazy that they're demonizing that? I'm on TRT too, but isn't it crazy they're demonizing that? But we have literally like all kinds of evidence that blood clots are a serious fucking issue and side effect of COVID
But
vaccines.
they can't say it, I guess. They just won't do it. My primary care, when I saw her yesterday, was even like this. She's like, I can't say it, but I can say that I've seen guys young like you that are having blood clot issues that have had the shot. That's what I can say.
At what point in time do we as Americans start killing the people that are trying to kill us? Real talk. I mean, this is I believe
we just got to pray that God is gonna put the right,
I believe that what's going to happen is that we're going to watch this population, this breaking point, this inability to vent the violence we talk about constantly, and the frustration combined with the lies that we're constantly being told is going to express. It's already done it a few times, man. And eventually,
the question is, will we see it in our lifetime?
I don't know, man.
Will it bubble up enough in the next 20 to 30 years?
It's a scary thought, man.
But I should be dead. So pretty much, even my primary care was like. And I talked to other pulmonary specialists and other, I forgot what the exact name is, people that do deep vein
thrombosis. And
yeah. But I mean, they're pretty much like 12 to 24 hours. Like when something like this happens, you're dead. And you had this for almost 3 weeks in your body. And it was also the 3 weeks I started a new workout plan. It's the hardest I'd worked out the whole year. Been pushing hard in the gym and I'm alive.
Dude, right?
I am alive. So like looking back now, like I definitely walked the line with death, and the Lord really had my back. And I'm still trying to figure out what his message is to that, but maybe it's just to show other people, like, when the Lord's with you, like you can literally be on death's bed and he's like, nah, that's all right. We're not going to do that.
Bro, you might have just saved somebody's life talking about this on that podcast. What if there's a dude right now that's going to be watching this later on and is like, hey man, my calf hurts like bad. And I've been working out like crazy.
Yeah, if you have a random swelling or discoloration anywhere in your body and you don't have a reason for it to be there, go to the ER, because there's a good chance you have blood clot in your arm, you have blood clot in your leg. Because my leg just stayed swollen for 3 weeks, and that's the blood clot is literally from the top of my calf all the way down to my ankle. It's a massive blood clot. They put me on blood thinners, and it's going to take 3 months, probably maybe longer, to dissipate. Yeah, so
that's crazy, man.
But as we're kind of wrapping things up here, man, what's some good business advice for anybody out there listening, or just in generalized advice that you can give, that you could give? I know a lot of people we have on, they run their own small businesses, and we didn't really dive into that too much today because we had so many other great things to talk about. It just who you are as a person, what you've been through, and hopefully your story, if someone's listening, will resonate and connect with them and maybe help them through a tough time.
Yeah. Well, my first advice, period, is you should give up the illusion of control of the world. Give up the illusion that you can see around all the corners in life and that you can somehow predict what's going to happen, because you're actually betting against yourself. And I'm going to talk a little bit on God just in this second before we wrap this round of business. But I believe that when you worry about things or allow anxiety to take over your mind, that you're actually praying to the devil, because you're using the same type of energy you use when you pray. You're using your focus, you're taking your spirit, you're taking all this stuff and you're focusing it towards something negative in the future and betting against yourself. And if there's one tool the enemy loves to use, it's fear. Fear is the opposite of love, not hate. Fear is a byproduct. I mean, hate is a byproduct of fear. It's a byproduct of not understanding things. And so love is action. Love is a choice. Fear is an instinctual thing, so it's a reaction. And the difference between a man and an animal is whether or not you fucking react to the stimuli in the world or you act on it once you make a decision after you've looked at it. And everything that you do as a reaction is going to destroy your business, your family, your life, and everything fucking around you, because you're acting like an animal. And animals hurt things around them. It don't matter how much a dog or a cat loves you. If Aslan gets injured and you try to pick him up, he will fuck you up. My mom tried to pick up her cat Cinder one time when he had a dislocated hip, or just like reach over to pet him and see if he was okay, and he absolutely annihilated her arm, and that was not a violent cat, So when people are in pain, man, they just destroy everything around them. And what you have to do to be good at business is you have to boil down everything about yourself and figure out who the fuck you are, because you can't run something if you don't know who you are. At the end of the day, you're not going to be able to mitigate your problems and mitigate the things that you bring to the table, both the positives and negatives, like I was saying earlier, unless you know who you are. And so people run businesses and they're trying to predict the market. They're trying to provide a product they think people are going to like. My tattoo business took off when I stopped trying to do tattoos that were popular. I started getting amazing at things when I was like, I want to do portraits, realism, and freehand and lettering. Like I picked like 4 or 5 things that I thought I was pretty good at that I loved to do, and it wasn't work to draw because it was something I would have drawn normally, and I hyper-focused and I got really good at it. And then I realized that social media doesn't have to be annoying. It can be dope, man. Like I do live videos every day. I've had people book with me and say, just give me a motivational quote. And I was like from who? And he was like, from you, dog. I'm like, I'm not that guy. Like I'm not, people don't quote me on the internet. Right. Okay. Like, but I wrote turn your pain into purpose on him. What that told me is that somebody will do business with you for emotional validation over anything else. We talked about this earlier.
Yeah.
So everything's an emotional validation. You just need to figure out what the fuck people want and talk to them about it. Because here's the crazy thing, man. The guy down the street can provide you with as good of a portrait as I could do, arguably. At least a few of them in the city can. I know at least two, maybe 3 guys that probably could. Just 20 years experience means a lot. Excuse me. I have never managed to stop burping like that. I think it's a nervous tick sometimes. I'm not sure sometimes. Sorry, will you remind me where we're at just a second ago?
We're just talking about business and some advice that you can give. And you're talking about pain and a purpose. You're talking about.
Okay. So if you're thinking about making a purchasing decision with these two guys and their work is equivalent, but you watch a video, they just for whatever reason happen to some reason touch on something that you went through and it hits a little piece of value or information that's powerful. Are you more likely to make a decision to go and do business with the person who gave you a piece of information that you didn't even know you fucking needed for free? Or just go with the random dude?
Yeah, you're going to take the guy that gives you value every time.
So if you're in like Gary Vee talks about this all the time. If you're in 2023 and you're not on social media, you don't fucking exist. Okay. It doesn't matter how good you are. You're dividing your efforts. You're not multiplying them like you should be able to do with that. And I would who was it? Brad Lee. I think he did a podcast and he was talking about Grant Cardone. And he was like, when Grant Cardone was like, I'm going to post 5 times a day on every social media platform forever. And he started doing it. I don't even know what Grant Cardone does. I just know that he's famous for being Grant Cardone. Okay. And he like travels around in a little private jet and buys property and talks to people about finances all the time. But he did that just by selling programs and this, that, and the other, but by posting every day constantly. And Brad supposedly calls him up and is like, hey man, I'm going to fucking unfollow you if you don't stop posting so much. This is fucking annoying. And he's like, you're not buying my programs anyway, dude. Bye.
Right.
And that was mind blowing to me because I'm like, I don't care if I annoy people. If you have 100,000 followers and those people each follow 20,000 people or 1,000 people or 500 people, what's the likelihood that your stuff sticks out in their newsfeed? For example, what was Joe Rogan's last podcast?
I don't know. I know he had Hulk Hogan on very recently.
Exactly, though. But so that means that even somebody you follow regularly, you don't know what he did last. Okay. So that means
he does so much.
That means that your followers don't know what you did last. Okay. So if you produce so much content that they don't get the opportunity to remember what you did, it doesn't matter if half of it sucks because they don't remember it anyway. They just remember that you exist and that you're out there doing this thing. And so my biggest thing is I would say that like, especially from my perspective is it's an act of masculinity. And it's an act of just knowing who I am. And that's that I choose to be a mountain. I have intrinsic value. I have gold buried in me. I have all of the different minerals and trees and all these different like natural resources that were placed in me by God. And I can personally mine them out. So it's a little bit of a different type of a metaphor, but it stands. You just become fucking undeniable. A mountain supports ecosystems. I support my family. I support the ecosystems of my employees' families. A mountain, again, it's just undeniable. You don't look at it and say, that's not a mountain. You don't look at it and say, who made that? God made it. And you just walk that out. You like, if you know what your elevation is, God can push that elevation higher, but you have to know where you're at so that you can ask him to do it. And it says, for I know the plans I have for you, says the Lord in Jeremiah 29:11. You know what it doesn't say? I know the plans I'm forcing on you. If you don't follow your conscience, you don't get to have the opportunity to live in those blessings. The blessings that we're all asking for as a business owner, as a man, as a father, as a family member, are all on the other side of how willing I am to be selfless. When I help all my employees, I'm helped. When I help my family, I'm helped. Nobody ever doesn't want to have the guy that helps everybody around.
Yeah.
It's fucking undeniable, man. And since I know my intrinsic value, I just bring that to the table everywhere I go and I talk about it every time I do it. Like, my tattoo sessions are basically this podcast with people. And I've had so much practice talking about philosophy in life that I can relate to anybody. And from the business perspective, that's what you need. If I can walk in there and he's like, my grandma died and she was important to me. I know what it's like to have somebody important to me die. Maybe not my grandma, but I know what it's like. And so I was like, what was her name? What was her favorite color? What's your favorite memory with her? And now that I know your favorite memory, why does that tie into how that shaped you as a human being? Now that I know how that shaped you as a human being, let's make some fucking art together, because I am intimate with you now, and I'm going to give you the intimacy of me making your fucking story for you. And again, walk into a consultation with somebody and ask me if they talk to you like that, or if they were like, what do you want? Okay, cool. Let me write it down. Give me $100. Talk to you in a week. Who are you going with? It's simple, man. There's a reason why car dealerships treat you a particular way when you go in there, man. There's a reason why their fucking commercials show people driving all fast and stuff like that. They're trying to give you the emotional validation so you feel like that guy you see in the fucking shit.
100%. I mean, that's how I make my videos. I want my clients' videos to connect with their clients. Mm-hmm. Because when you connect something emotionally, you're so much more likely to spend the money.
Mm-hmm. Well,
buy the product.
Here's the final kicker, though. You actually have to believe what you do.
Oh, yeah.
When you don't believe what you do, you don't have the resource of energy to keep pushing through when it gets hard. When you don't have the why, like, who is it? I think Simon Sinek talks about this in Start With Why. That book is a fucking amazing book. I always recommend it. Think and Grow Rich is personally my favorite after the Bible. There was I think Nietzsche specifically says that that he who has a why can bear almost any how. And I'm not going to attribute, because this is a slightly political person here, but I'm not going to attribute this quote to him because I don't want to like overly politicize this, man. But a man will happily crawl through broken fucking glass with a smile on his face if he believes that there's a purpose to him doing that.
100%.
And that's it. And just find out what your fucking purpose is and crawl through that fucking glass. When you stand up on the other side, you're going to look bad as a motherfucker. like, I feel so savage about that, man. Like when you're talking about the gym, man, like, you're fucking alive. You know what I mean? Like, I get it. I used to hate the gym. I'm an artist. I'm not an athlete. You know, I did Taekwondo and I did some like MMA stuff, but like I'm not serious with it. You know, I have a second-degree black belt, but I was a kid, so it's like different. You know, but like when you hit a set and you're like, I'm gonna fucking die. Like, I can feel it's impossible to have anxiety when you're doing burpees.
Yeah.
You ever tried it? Like, try to worry about your rent when you're trying to make sure you don't fucking vomit. Like, did I pee? Yeah. Nope, I didn't. Like, you just don't care. And we don't burn off enough of our fucking energy. So I'll give that as a final piece of advice. Get your fucking health in order, because while you're worried about all this, you're taking bandwidth with everything else. And when I walk out of the gym, I'm feeling swole, I'm feeling jacked and tatted and juicy as fuck. You know, like, I'm ready to take the world on. And because of that, I'm more confident in my decisions. I'm more confident with everything because I respect myself. Joe Rogan talked about that. When I go into a hard workout, I respect myself for at least one day. And you just get up, and success is a marching out one boring day after another. It turns out that it's not actually boring, it's consistent. Mm-hmm. But most people...
Some days are boring, some days are hard, but it's pushing through that. It's getting to that next day, mm-hmm. and then, this is great today.
People misidentify excitement and drama a lot.
Well, we spend too much time trying to be happy. But you can't be happy all the time. And if you can accept that you can't be happy all the time, and sometimes you're sad, sometimes you're off, and you can sit in it and you can work through it, and you understand that like life is not going to be great 24/7. And spending all this time and effort for life to be great all the time is almost it is a negative. No, it actually pulls you back further.
Yeah, it's also it's how I think that's how these like school shooters. I think that's how like all these people who are so that do such fucking violent, atrocious shit to other people start out, because they start out with this idea that they actually know what they should be and what they should experience and what reality should look like, which is this like ultimate form of arrogance. The world should be how I think it is. Really, bro? Is your fucking finances put together enough that you could pay your rent 10 months in advance? Are you put together? Is your life put together? Then what do you think you can judge what God's doing?
Right.
Like, that's crazy, bro. Like, it's such a level of arrogance. It's dangerous in the extreme. That's how these people do, like, justify all this crazy stuff. At the end of the day, man, like, again, it's just understanding you're imperfect. Because if I'm perfect, I don't have any room to improve. Why would I even bother? I will
and that's the same thing with business.
Yeah.
Like, you understand that your business is not perfect. Like,
it's as messed up as me because I run it.
I love looking at other people's work and being like, man, I want that. I want to be that good, or I want to be able to make a video like that. That reminds me that I always have room to grow.
Yeah.
And then I push for it.
It's also, I would say, I don't know how long you've been doing this. You probably already know this, but just be careful that you don't let it influence you too much, because it can actually get to a point where you're not being creative in your own way because you're consuming.
100%. It just, it opens up the door, because there are sometimes I don't feel creative, and I see someone's creative work and I'm like, well, I can take this, I can put my spin on it. This is, you know what I mean? And it kind of gets those juices going again.
I like to watch it or look at something for long enough for the juices to flow and then throw it away and put it out of my face so I can do myself out of that.
Exactly.
That's crazy.
But man, Justin, this has been a phenomenal podcast. There's no way someone listening to this is not going to get some value out of this right here. I can't wait to work on this tattoo with you as soon as I get off these blood thinners.
Yeah. I honestly just can't wait to have these conversations more, man, too. I did want to, this last thing, the last sentence I'll say.
Go for it.
But this is just for everybody out there. And you were talking about aiming for happiness, man. I think that you just need to aim for purpose. Because I don't care if I'm happy if I served a purpose that was more powerful than me. If I just did something amazing for my family, and I just, like, for example, my daughter is going to STEAM right now, man. And like, it has been so hard because I took full custody of her about 2 years ago, and there was a very, very difficult battle, and her mother is currently struggling with addiction, you know. But it's like, I had to power through that stuff. And no matter the fact that still hurts, and I wish I had a co-parent that would help me, the purpose of being a good father to my child and knowing that my wife is a good mother to my child, even though it's not her biological mother, makes it so any of that pain is irrelevant. Any of that unhappiness or any of the difficulties become irrelevant in the long term. But that's a thing that, what's the word for it here? Maturity brings. Like, you can't, it takes 25 years to be 25 years old. That's fucking hard. You know? Yeah. So don't quit, guys. I promise you it gets better.
Well, guys, thanks for stopping in and listening to the podcast. Justin, thanks again for popping in and giving us so much value. So many, like I said, we're so used to talking complete business, and we just kind of went all over the place today. And your story just is, I mean, it's inspirational to me, man. I got value just talking to you today. So, but thanks for coming on, and man, I hope you just keep kicking ass for the Lord, keep kicking ass in your business, and maybe we'll have you on again.
Yeah, sounds great, man.
All right.
Maybe I'll invite you over to mine. It's not as set up as this, though.
I would love to do it, man. All right, guys. Catch you next time.